GM, everybody. Ooh, Alex, already seeing some familiar faces. Ooh, I see Bill as well. How's everyone doing? Gotta close the Telegram. The chat's going wild on Telegram. All the DMs. All right. I already see a couple of people are starting to filter in. If anyone has any questions, the whole purpose of this is questions and answers for all things Solana Actions and Blinks. Feel free to post whatever questions you got into the chat, and I'll just answer them as I see them. We're going to go as technical or as not technical as people want. I could show code snippets if that's what people want. We can talk about different portions of the action spec. We could talk about some ideas for actions and blinks. There's tons of really cool ideas that I'm seeing all around Twitter and in several Telegram chats that I've already been invited to. Yeah, there's so much going on. It's awesome. Like the whole community is rallying around this idea and this initiative known as Solana Actions and Blinks, and this is going to be great. GM Jax, what up? All right. Oh, first question. Can you explain the actions JSON and how to set up your own domain? Absolutely. So let me go ahead and just show this. There we go. So the first question is about actions JSON and how to set up your domain. So specifically the domain side of that, I'll answer that first since it's easy. You have a domain and you publish your code to the domain, just like any web development flow. You're going to publish your website to that, address, say, mywebsite.com, whatever your domain registrar is, you publish your website, and it's just that simple. And then for the actions JSON, to clarify some of the information about the actions JSON, and in fact, if I got some sweet on-screen helpers here. There we go. Boom, the docs. You can check out the docs. The docs talk about the actions JSON and kind of how it works and like what it's supposed to do. But there's a couple of things to note about the actions JSON. First thing is the actions.json file must be globally accessible. So like anyone needs to be able to do a request to access this JSON file. That's the first thing. And then you need to have this at the very root of your domain. So if your domain, tying into your domain question here, Bill, your domain is mydomain.com, the actions.json file must be accessible at mydomain.com/actions.json. And that needs to be universally, globally accessible, across the internet. The whole purpose of the actions.json file is to help the Blinks UI, the rendering elements that you're seeing on the pages on Twitter or on dial.to. It's to help map any given URL that your website has to an actual action. So to give an example here is Jupyter. Jupyter is a great example. If you go to jup.ag/actions.json, you see a very, very simple actions.json file. And this file has a single rule, an action rule, as it's called. And this action rule basically maps the links that are on jup.ag/swap/whatever the token is. So Sol USDC, for example, it maps that to an action API endpoint that follows the action specification to accept the get and the post requests and the options request. It just typical HTTP methods there. And it maps that just normal URL that you're sharing on Twitter. Like if you open Jupyter right now, or you open any of the platforms that have already enabled this, Sanctum is another example. Sanctum's live, Tensor is live. If you look at their actions JSON, you can see what actions they're already supporting. And it maps that to an API endpoint that is the action itself. So the Blink we'll make it so the blink is like the UI side of it. It'll unfurl. It renders the UI automatically if it's on the registry and has been like that pre-approved sort of thing. And that's the whole purpose of the actions JSON. So it makes it so in the example of Jupiter, they have a wildcard in there. It takes the sole USDC and that maps it to an API endpoint that then any action client can make the get and the post request to basically get the metadata in accordance with the specification for actions. It can get the metadata, and then ultimately it can get the transaction by making the post request and getting the post response, getting the serialized transaction that the user can then sign with their wallet directly on the page. So that's kind of the that's the actions JSON. If you have any other questions about the actions JSON, feel free to post them if you want me to help clarify anything. But I hope that answers it all. And we got some more people joining in here. We'll go ahead and switch back over to this. I got some sweet animations going on. If anyone else is joining in here, feel free to ask any questions you have about actions and blinks. I'm here to answer them all, whether it's developer specific or not. If people want, I can try to show code snippets too. I have some code snippets prepared of like how to do things. Got a whole bunch of links. I'll be displaying them on the screen as I go. And just a friendly reminder, here it is, there it is. Check out the docs for actions if you haven't already. Whole bunch of information in there. And if anyone is not familiar with me, hi, I'm Nick. I'm on the developer relations team at the Solana Foundation. And my entire focus right now is actions and blinks. And I'm having a blast. And I'm new to this whole streaming thing, so I hope you'll all bear with me here. I'm using some software I've never used before. So I'm going to go, that was the question we just asked. We got another question here, also from Bill. I'm just going linearly in series. Bill also asked, and how basically self-hosting your own blink and actions work. So self-hosting your blinks and actions. So blinks and actions are two different things. And there's like a nuance difference between them. An action, we'll focus there. The action side of it is the get and post request system. Think of it like a REST API endpoint. You are able to interact with this. Anyone is able to interact with this action API to get the metadata and eventually get a transaction that a user can sign. That's the action side of it. And then on the other side, you have blinks. Blinks you can kind of think of as standardized UIs that will render for users, like Dialects examples, Dialects extension, Phantom and Backpack already have support now that will natively render these blinks, like the UI rendered on Twitter, on x.com, and as well as dial.to, rendering that UI. So that's like the blink side of it. The blink is the UI, the action is the backend. You can kind of think of it like that. It seems to help some people to make that distinction there. And for self-hosting actions, you're just deploying this backend service. You deploy it on a web server somewhere that you can respond to the get, post, and options requests in accordance with the specification. And then you are able to just transport that information back and forth. And then that becomes globally accessible for anyone on the internet to make those requests and eventually get a transaction that users can sign. And then for blinks, specifically blinks on x.com, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it, in order for blinks to render on x.com, you need a couple of things to happen. The first thing is you need to be sharing a link on social media on this platform. Currently, it's locked to x.com, twitter.com. So this is the only website that will show these. So you need to be viewing a link on this platform, and I'll explain how cool and simple that actually is. The link needs to be a valid action, like supporting action. So like Jupiter, again, if you share a link to Jupiter and the next thing is you have one of these extensions installed, either Dialects open source Blink extension, or if you have the Blink feature enabled within Backpack or Phantom, and eventually other wallets soon, it has the potential to render. It'll be able to check if the link that was shared was initially like supports actions and can be unfurled, is the term you'll hear a lot. Unfurled. Just think unfurl is like automatically rendering the UI for people. It will automatically attempt to render it if a couple of conditions are met. One, it follows the specification for actions. So it has the actions JSON. It can respond to the correct HTTP methods, get, options, and post. And then it'll attempt to render it. And this next part is very important. If it's on the registry. So right now, for user security, for everyone's security to prevent spammers and things like that, there is a registry. People can submit a request to be added to it. Currently, it's via like an Airtable form. A whole bunch of processes are going in place to make that more open and make that more approachable to people. But for right now, because these just launched yesterday, people, you can go to dial.to/register, and you can submit any blinks that you have there following the form, just Airtable form. But if it's on the registry as like it's been kind of like inspected before it's been, basically making sure it conforms to the spec, then if it meets all these conditions, it will then render on the page. So the way that rendering happens is that it is quite literally as simple as someone sharing a link. That's it. Just like you're sharing a normal link. So if you were to share a link to Sanctum or Tensor or any of these platforms that already supports actions and blinks, all you have to do from like the user perspective is simply share a link, and that link will automatically unfurl and render the UI if it meets those criteria that I just described. And then people will be able to immediately click their buttons, connect their wallet directly in the Twitter feed, in Twitter DMs, all across the platform, which is really cool. And if the links are not in that registry, they're not going to render a UI right now. You still get all the effect of sharing a normal link on social media, just like you share a link to GitHub right now. You're just sharing a link to GitHub. Twitter will start to render the open graph data. You get the image, title, description, all that kind of stuff. You get like the social preview card. The same thing happens there. Think of like blinks and action. The blink side of it is like an extra layer on top of that of, if this conforms to all these criteria, then we can render, wallet connection type things for users to actually interact with it. All right. Let's go on to the next question. And yep, so Alex asks, what's the difference between actions and blink? I think I've already answered that, Alex, for you. If I have not clarified it, feel free to ask it again as I scroll through the chat here. All right, just a couple of things. Friendly reminder to anyone, if you are looking for the easiest way to get started with developing blinks, building your own, you can use the Actions SDK, which is at Solana/actions. You can just directly install it, add it to your repo, add it to your project, and start building them. And there's a whole bunch of documentation here on the Solana website for the documentation, in just like the regular documentation you expect for Solana. And Dialect also has tons and tons of documentation and resources available on dialect.to as well. And if anyone has any questions, feel free, post them in the chat. See, there's lots more people joining. The whole purpose of this live stream, it's going to be very raw. Post whatever questions you have about actions and blink, whether they are very technical or not. I love all things developers and SDKs and stuff, so happy to answer any questions. I'm just going to be scanning through some of these other questions. As I'm scanning through here, I'll throw this on the screen. If anyone is looking for, has ideas of where to, wrong one. If anyone's looking for information about like some of the blinks and actions that are available, we set up this awesome repo called Awesome Blinks, following the typical awesome GitHub thing. It's just a list of what is currently available. It's a very small list right now. A lot of people are trying to build all sorts of things. So if you are building something that is actions or blinks, please open a PR to this repo and we'll get it live and make it so everyone can easily discover, some of the things that are out there for actions and blinks. Like actions and blinks just launched yesterday. So only a little bit more than 24 hours, maybe like 36 hours since the initial launch. And the community engagement's been amazing. And then within that same GitHub repo, there are discussion boards are set up. So if anyone has ideas for blinks or wants to have public discussions about anything around blinks, feel free to post your ideas there, post your discussions there. It's completely open, the beautiful world of open source. And I'll leave that on the screen as I keep scanning through the chat for some questions. And like I mentioned, I'm new to this whole live stream thing. So if anyone has any pro tips, let me know. I'm trying to figure this whole thing out. I think this is my first, maybe second live stream like this that I've ever done. So Bear with me. Okay, got another question from Bill here. So in his example, the jupe.ag/actions.json, they put the 2 asterisks in the API path and deploys to dialect, and it maps to the endpoint. Yeah, so that ties into the actions.json spec. So the actions.json, it supports wildcards, either single star or double star, and the specifics of what each of those mean are covered in the documentation, which is, again, right here. That's covered in the documentation, so you can read through the actions.json, talks about the wildcards. And again, for those of you that have joined after, the action.json is effectively just allows websites to map URLs that are on the website to actions that it can actually perform and allow users to perform, render UI around them. But the question is, what is the double asterisk and like how that works? So with the example of Jupyter here, their actions.json, which I don't know if I can screen share. I could probably screen share this, but I don't know. What their action.json does is it maps every single link on their swap page. So if you open Jupyter, go to a swap, you have jupe.ag/swap/token-token. So USDC Sol, Sol USDC, whatever. You have your token. That double asterisk, that is the mapping. So it's you're using the actions.json. It's declaring that it's trying to map that swap URL. In this case, it's mapping to dialect website, to the dialect API. Dialect is effectively hosting that action to allow them to make it so Jupyter didn't have to kind of do too much there. Their dialect is actually facilitating the action side of it. They're doing the get and the post request. They're handling all the CORS issues, cross-origin request stuff. And it's also, they're also returning the transaction for the user to sign using their wallet when it gets rendered into a Blink with them. So that's what that double asterisk there. Just a mapping, wildcard mapping, maps the URL on the website to the URL of the action API to actually get the action and perform the action requests. This question here, what's next for Solana? Are you not entertained? We have actions and blinks. They're here now. This is the next thing on Solana. Work with actions and blinks. Move on to the next question. When client-side code? I'm not sure what you mean by client-side code. If you could elaborate, like a lot of this is client-side. It's pretty evenly split, client and server side. If you could kind of clarify your question and what you're looking for there, be happy to answer it. All right. Next question is, what are some of the best use cases for blinks? This is a good question. So at their core, Solana Actions and Blinks, well, at their core, Solana Actions are a way to get any Solana transaction to a user where they're already at. That's the base level, base idea. Get actions to people they can sign, to do whatever you want them to do on chain. Blinks are the UI rendering layer that make it so you can render those actions. You can render the interface, the buttons, the text input. You can render that to people in order to actually interact with them, sign the transaction, do the whole transaction flow on Solana, right? So you can do anything you can think of with a transaction on the network. You can do that with an action with blinks. So you could do some interesting use cases that I think are really powerful are governance voting. If you take your favorite governance platform, whether it's something like Jupe's LFG, Realms DAO, Phase Labs, all of these governance platforms, one of the biggest problems that they have is engagement. They struggle getting people to vote. So with actions and blinks, you can bring the voting to the people. People, especially in the crypto world, everyone's on social media a lot, especially here on x.com, Twitter. They're here interacting, they're scrolling through their feeds, and they're not necessarily thinking about going to another platform, another website in order to cast their vote for whatever governance proposal is available. Also Helium 2, their governance proposals. But with blinks, one of the powerful things you can do is you can bring the vote to the person. You can bring the ability to vote immediately on a proposal directly to a person's social media feed. So with this, one of the things that I'm super excited to see how this turns out and like see the engagement and the uptick in voting on all of these proposals that these different platforms have is you're bringing the vote to the person, where they can have the 3 buttons, you know, vote yes, vote no, and abstain from vote kind of thing. And you just click a button, you know, you can get the information about the proposal, you could read more, go to the website. But if you already saw the proposal and like are informed enough to cast your vote, you can immediately cast your vote from your social media feed. You don't have to go out to their website in order to cast your vote. You have your wallet directly there, and you can do it right where you're at. That's one of my personally favorite use cases, getting more governance interactions and people actually casting their vote, participating in governance in all these amazing decentralized protocols. That one's going to be really powerful. Collectibles are also really fun and interesting, where you can be able to mint and claim collectibles directly in your feed. You know, maybe that collectibles can be just about anything you can think of. So you could have like content creators can have their content can be published using things like Access Protocol. They can then publish that link to their blog posts in their social media feed here on x.com, and people can immediately claim that they can claim that piece of content directly to their wallet because they're already on x.com. They can immediately just interact with it, sign the transaction, claim their token, claim their digital asset, their collectible right where they're at. And that's like one of the superpowers of Blinks in Action. It's bring Solana to where people already are. It's one of the powers of blockchain is blockchain can be this common base layer of the internet. It's an open protocol inherently, protocols plural. And if you can bring that to the base layer of everything, then you can do anything you put your mind to. Just need some developers to build some more cool things. All right. GM, everybody. I've seen more people have joined. Just a friendly reminder here. I'm trying to look for my sweet cards here. I'm Nick. I'm on the developer relations team at the Solana Foundation. And the whole purpose of this live stream is just to answer any and all questions that people have about Actions and Blinks. In case you don't already know, Actions and Blinks, they just launched yesterday. They're a really powerful new primitive, but the secret's out. It's actually an old primitive. Solana Actions are actually based off of Solana Pay transaction request. Shout out to Jordan Sexton and creating the Solana Pay spec. And they're built on top of it as like the next iteration in a way, but with some nuances to that. And they're really great. So if there's any developers in the audience who want to learn more, you can check out the docs on solana.com/docs/advanced/actions, and you can learn all about all things developer focused, I guess, for the specification for what Actions and Blinks are. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. I'm just gonna keep it raw, read through every single one that I see, and this will be at least an hour to the top of the hour, but if there's still people in here asking questions, and depending on what's next on my calendar, I might just keep going, because actually I won't keep going because I have another call. All right, so someone asked, let's see, try to find some more questions. Okay, here's one. See if that shows up. There we go. Someone asked, is it possible to set actions the last for a certain period of time to make a PvP game with them? Can you set time limits when you share a blink? So yes and yes, to answer those questions in the simplest way possible. Yes, you can. So because of the way that actions work, someone is sharing a link to a website. It's inherently what you're doing. You're sharing a link to a website. This website has actions support under the hood. And so you're building the transaction and you're building responses on a backend server. So you can do whatever logic you want to do here on that backend server. That can be doing like time-based locks of things. Like you can reject the request and give an error saying something to the effect of, this action is no longer valid, it's expired. You can absolutely do that. A great example is with, you've mentioned games here, but with, again, governance proposals, a governance proposal is inherently short-lived. Like there's a time period where the vote must be cast. So once that time period is passed, the action API endpoint, the action you build to interact and actually vote, it can return a message saying, hey, the vote has closed for this. You can no longer vote. You can absolutely do that. In fact, it's incredibly encouraged in a lot of cases because it gives a better user experience. And it's all about user experience. Without good user experience, people won't use the thing. So we want good user experience. But yeah, so you can absolutely time lock it like that. So that can be with the get and the post request, because the get request, the initial get request, you're returning basically metadata of what is available, what actions you want someone to perform when they are referencing a specific link. So you can, with that, there is, if you look at the specification in the docs, there is there's a field that you can return. I believe it is actually just error, and it's basically, or it's maybe it's disabled. I don't remember off the top of my head. There's if you look at the docs in the specification, you can basically declare that your action endpoint should be disabled, that it should still render the UI and display a message. And effectively, it's like render the UI, display a message that is like, this is disabled, please don't interact with it. And then on the UI side, the Blink renderer, your wallet, the Dialect SDK, it will then disable the form. No one can interact with it. So same thing with the Blinks. You can time lock it on the get and the post. And specifically with the post request is, in fact, I highly encourage this. If you are doing a time lock sort of thing, with the post request, it's very important that you have that time lock logic in there, because without it, the post request is returning the transaction. So if you return a transaction, the user could still attempt to sign it. But on your server, if you do not want to return the transaction, that's where you need that logic in order to not return the transaction. So if you do not return the transaction, you return an error, then the user never gets a transaction. It's now locked. You can kind of think of it like that. All right, so there's that question. I see a lot of familiar faces showing up in the chat. This is great. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post them. Any and all questions about actions and blinks, and we will I'll answer them to the best of my ability, and hopefully I'll be able to answer all of them. But I do need a drink break. All right, here's one. Here we go. Someone asked an example of using SNS ID or all domains ID and auto expand something more useful. So using domain protocols like SNS and all domains, you absolutely can use them, because like I mentioned earlier, Solana Actions and Blinks are inherently just Solana transactions. You are doing anything you can do with Solana transactions. You're building a transaction on your server, and you're returning metadata to the user in the form of the Blinks and in the get requests and responses and things. You're returning data that's going to be used to build a UI for people to interact with. You can return whatever like information you want. You can return error messages. You can return like helpful messages to users. You can, automatically convert their wallet address to their SNS or all domains ID for whatever domain. You can display that to them. So you can do all of that. In fact, I saw, I believe it's live now. I saw Bonfida, Bonfida. So the people behind SNS, they, I'm pretty sure it's live now. They published a Blink that you can just create. You can claim SNS IDs. So your typical .sols, you can immediately claim them from like your Twitter feed. So you could mint new SNS IDs, which is really cool. I believe that one's live. And I think All Domains is also working on something similar. Shout out to both those protocols. Like they're great. Anyone who follows me, they probably know I have a domain problem. I have many domains, both Web3 and Web2. I love all things domains. They're so good. And then I see you asking you posted something else in the chat. Can you elaborate on what you mean by auto expand to something more useful? Like, what do you mean there? Do you have any examples? Can you like clarify of like what you're asking there? I'm not quite sure. And while I wait for that response from you, hopefully I get it. I'm going to give a quick shout out for this awesome Blinks repo. This awesome Blinks repo. So you can find it under the Solana developers GitHub org. It's basically just a list of Blinks and actions that people have created that you can like use on social. It's by all means not a complete list. This was just published earlier today, a couple of hours ago. But PRs are welcome. If anyone is building Blinks and they are live and they render, open a PR and we'll get it merged. We'll get it live. There's a contributing guide, code of conduct, all that good stuff in there. But basically, this will be like one useful resource for people that want to discover what awesome Blinks are available. And there's also some links for assorted developer tooling in there and any developer resources. So anything that's awesome and related to Blinks, send it in. Let's get it. And then related to that is if anyone has ideas of what could be built with Blinks, we also just earlier today just published this discussion board on that same GitHub org, or that same GitHub repo. Post your ideas and post discussions that you want to have about Blinks, of what it could be, what things like you would like to see as ideas for Blinks, interacting with different protocols, anything you want. The world is your oyster. Post some ideas in there, and we'll get it discovered. And then shout out to the friends at Super Team. Their Super Team has micro grants that are going on. So right now there's something close to like 400K worth of grants in the Solana ecosystem that are entirely focused around Blinks and actions. Super Team is doing a whole bunch of those, partnering with Dialect to offer micro grants to people that are building Blinks and actions. So if you're building a Blink in action, take a look at the Super Team grants page for Blinks and follow whatever their guidelines are and submit for it. Let's it's good stuff. All right, checking the chat again. Okay, I got a response. Got the response. I think Blinks. Oh, let me click it. Let me click it. So, for anyone who just joined, where'd it go? Where'd it go? There it is. For anyone who just joined, this person asked for auto expand of something more useful related to SNS and all domains. So your typical Web3 domain protocols. So their response, I asked for more info. Blinks can be composable on top of SNS IDs, kind of variable target for actions. Yes, they can be. Inherently, it's all composable because it's Solana. Like Solana is incredibly composable. Like that's one of the big goals of Solana as like a blockchain technology. And you can do all of this because you get the user's wallet address. So like when someone is interacting with a Blink, just like in the Solana Pay transaction request specification, when you're interacting with it, the part of the protocol specification, there's a GET request and a POST request. During the POST request from the client side to the server that's going to build the transaction and return it to the user, that POST request as a payload, as a bit of information, it sends the user's wallet address that is going to sign the transaction. So you already have the user's wallet address. You can do whatever it is, whatever logic you want to do or need to do on your backend server in order to build a transaction, including things like token gating checks or any logic in like a off-chain database. If you check if you have their wallet associated with a user account on your platform, all sorts of stuff. So you have the user's wallet address. You could do whatever it is that you want with there or with that. So you could resolve it to an SNS ID, an all domains ID. You could get more data off chain or on chain. You could send an additional transaction on your backend server, and then you send different transactions to the user as well. So if you need to execute some logic, like execute a crank transaction to crank an order book or something, you can help like facilitate that user experience. You can automate the crank on your side, and then you send the user their transaction to do whatever it is that they're doing, minting an NFT or voting or whatever. So yeah, it's the beauty of blockchain. It's composable. You could do anything you want with a Solana transaction. That you can do that with a Blink and an action. Bill again asked, how can we apply for some Blink grants for open source examples? That's what that grants page is for. Let's see where it goes. Gotta find my lower thirds here. So you can apply for things if you're building it there. You can apply for things here. You can also, I believe it should be updated by now, but solana.org/grants. If anyone is building anything that doesn't fit into the micro grants that are powered by Super Team, if anyone's building anything and it's Blink related or actions related, SDKs, developer tooling, platforms, whatever, feel free to take a look at the solana.org/grants page. There's a whole bunch of information about the general Solana Foundation grants program, and anyone is welcome to follow the instructions there and submit a grant request, grant proposal rather, and you'll hear back from the amazing grants team that the Solana Foundation has. Shout out to Andrea and the grants team, Andrea and Shiwa. Looks like Alex asked to share the links in the chat. Can you be more specific of what links you're talking about? Are you talking about the grants page on solana.org. Type it in. Is this the grants page? Oh, apparently on this platform thing I'm using here, I can't post it into the chat. If you're asking for the links for like me to copy and paste them in the chat, I don't know if I can. I'm gonna be honest with you, but I can post them here on the screen. There's the page I was talking about, solana.org/grants. The links I share on screen. My thing's not letting me. It says it's read only, so I am sorry. Like I said, I'm new to this whole streaming thing. This is like my first time doing this. I don't know. Let me see. I don't want to listen to myself. That'd be weird. How do I? There we go. Okay, it's loading. Here we go. Oh, thanks, Bill. I see you there. Amazing. Yeah, if people could help out and post the links in the chat. It doesn't want to seem to work for me for some reason. I'm new to this whole streaming thing. I'm sorry. I'm just a dev. I'm just a dev building cool things and having fun. Okay, so I hope so. Yeah, some of the links that you're asking for there are in the chat, Alex. If you need more grants, feel free to ask, or need more links, feel free to ask about them, and we'll see if we can get them to you. All right, next question here. Just a friendly reminder here. Before I show that one, the whole point of this live stream here is to answer any and all questions that people have about actions and blinks. That can be anything technical or not technical. I'm happy to attempt to answer any questions that I can, or give you the resources and point you to the right direction of who might be able to answer that or where to learn more. That's kind of the whole goal here. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the chat, and I will just reading through the chat, and I will attempt to answer every single one of them. At the very least, this is going to go on for another 30 minutes to the top of the hour before I have to go to some other calls and meetings. And for those of you who don't know me, there it is. I'm Nick. I'm the developer relations team at the Solana Foundation, and my entire focus right now is Solana Actions and Blinks, and I'm having a blast. They're incredibly cool. And shout out for the Solana docs. If anyone has not looked at the Solana docs, I keep seeing people asking questions that are covered in the docs, and not specifically here, just like in general on social media. Check out the docs. There's a whole bunch of information in there. And then the easiest way to get started is using the Solana Actions SDK and all the amazing resources that Dialect has put together. You can learn all about that at dialect.to. In fact, I will even type this in here. There you go. Showing some love to Dialect. Dialect.to, amazing resources over there. The entire Dialect team has done such an amazing job with as a partner with this launch, and really the one of the biggest driving forces of it. It's been amazing to work with them. Love them over there. All right, so I'm going to go to some more questions. I see. Here we go. Drink break though. All right. Someone asked, how does the Solana action specification handle the security and validation of transactions signed by the user, especially in scenarios where multiple clients and applications are interacting with the same action URL? So a couple of things in here. One, the action specification doesn't handle how should I phrase this? There are the action specification, the whole point of it is to get a transaction from a server to give it to a user, to provide that to a user in order to do it, in order to sign it and interact with it. The security there is there's a couple of things that play into the entirety of the security model of actions and blinks. And this is one of the things that I think people aren't quite realizing or recognizing of like kind of how this, I got a notification that says the stream might be having a problem. I don't know. So like what's happening there is it's making a get and a post request to server. It's getting a transaction back, but actions are inherently a permissionless specification. It's just people are hosting server backends that are returning this data. Where the security portion really comes in is how the user is getting that transaction or getting any transaction in order to sign with their wallet. And this is the very, very important part. So typically what people are realizing of how they're interacting with these things are in the form of the blinks, that UI that is rendered on the page on x.com. That's what people are seeing right now. And if you notice, not every single link will render that UI. And that's very important. So what's happening here is if someone shares a link to a website that supports the action specification and it does all the things and it could potentially be rendered in the UI, one of the things that's happening as a security measure for this launch, as a preemptive sort of thing, there is a registry that people need to submit to at dialect. Sorry, I'm trying to remember the link. dial.to/register, and people can submit and apply to this. This is, again, not a scalable solution. This literally just because for launch, this was an easy MVP. Consider it an easy MVP. Only links that are on that list will unfurl, will render that standard UI and allow a user to connect their wallet and actually sign the transaction. Otherwise, like someone has a server backend somewhere that has that's doing transactions and like providing transactions via the post request, but it doesn't return it to the user, and it doesn't matter. So it's completely like any website on the internet does things on their website, like completely disconnected from this, right? So only links that are on that registry, only domains that are on that registry will have this standard UI rendered. And if they're not, you just see a link like you would someone shared a link on social media, it just goes to their website, whatever. Don't click on links that you don't trust, right? That's the standard rule of the internet. And especially on social media, like just don't click on links you don't trust. Like all sorts of bad things can happen, right? Use common sense. So there's no UI that's actually rendered. So that's one part. If it is on the registry, the UI will be rendered, and then the user ultimately gets a transaction. That transaction still goes to your wallet, your Phantom, your Backpack, Soulflare, whatever wallet you're using, still goes to your wallet. Every single one of those wallets have security features that are built in. Some of them use different security providers, like Blowfish is one. There's several other security providers and services that these wallets have that are within them. So they do transaction simulation, they do a whole bunch of testing and like user security things within their wallets. So the wallets themselves, your Backpack, Soulflare, Phantom, choose your favorite wallet. They have a bunch of security measures that are already baked in. Because in the end, you as the user, me as the user, you're still getting a transaction. You're still being prompted to sign it. And your wallet will still do all the normal security measures and flagging of transactions as they deem fit. So if you're using your normal crypto wallet, your normal Solana wallet, you still get all those security benefits that you get from your same wallet experience. And that's one of the things that these two things here is one of the things that people are kind of not quite, I don't think quite recognizing, that like you have this semi-permissioned aspect where it's only a subset of links that will like show the standard UI. Again, not scalable, not decentralized. It's permissioned right now. Where a whole bunch of things are going on in the background to make that better, make it more public, and all those amazing things. But you still have all the security benefits of transaction simulation and all the security things that are built within the wallets that you know and love. So I think that addresses your question here. And if it doesn't, feel free to ask again or ask any of the clarifying points that you want me to try to clarify. I'd be happy to. Got to figure out how to make that. There we go. All right. Yep, Blockade. That was the other one. Blowfish and Blockade are two of the more popular ones that a lot of wallets are using. I think Phantom uses Blowfish. Backpack uses Blockade. I think that's what it is, right? Don't quote me on that. Yeah. Yep, wholeheartedly agree. Yep, right there. There we go. What would I like to see built with Blinks? Any ideas that would be cool from the stream? We need automated tools for deploying local code, basic autogen mapping. Yeah, so a couple of things here. One, what would I like to see? I've already kind of listed some of those. There's tons of things that could be built. Oh man. I don't know. I have a list somewhere that I'm going to publish into the awesome repo at some point when I get a free moment. And shameless plug for the awesome repo. If anyone has any ideas, they can feel free to post them here. This just went live a couple hours ago. But where'd the link go? See Blinks. So lots of developer tooling can and will be built around this. There is some developer tooling right now, things like the Actions SDK. Dial.to is another great tool. And Dialect has some SDKs and stuff, and like there's a bunch. There's some developer tooling now. There's a video on YouTube on the Solana Foundation YouTube channel on like how to build the actions. But this just launched yesterday. Like we can't. There's a whole lot of moving parts that happened within the idea of actions and blinks, and a lot of groups got together in order to help push this forward. And there's only so much we could build at one time. But also like now that it's out in the public, we have the amazing Solana community, Solana ecosystem of incredibly intelligent people and developers where we can think of new ideas. We can think of new SDKs and developer tooling that anyone wants to help build. There's a laundry list of things that I personally want to build and plan to build to help smooth out some of these rough edges, including like basically a website you can do like the full, like a checklist in a way, an automated checklist, like give it a URL. It performs all the checks that you need to like pass in order to like actually function. Things like making sure your cores headers are accurate. Do eventually get to like doing the get and post request. You can like kind of simulate it in a way, and then finally get the transaction, and then you can still do normal transaction simulation like you can within your wallet, and your wallets all do. Doing all of those. That's one idea of like some like developer tooling things that's like built around Blinks that I think would be really, really powerful for people. And then automated tooling to help getting set up locally. Absolutely. So right now there is some example code that people are publishing. People are also starting to open source. Like it's been like a day and a half. People are already open sourcing their actions and how they're building them. Shout out to Cubic. I know the Cubic team published their actions. They open source theirs, which are awesome. And there's some other ones that are listed on the awesome repo. And yeah, for other developer tooling, I do agree that there's definitely some other tools that could be built to help you kind of get started faster. Like in my mind, it'd be really nice if there was like a single CLI command that you could run that was like, that you could just like kind of scaffold out everything you need for actions, kind of like generate your endpoints based off whatever framework you're using. So like if you're using Express or Fastify or Next.js, you can basically auto detect what framework or what system you're using within the within your repo, because you can look at your package.json, you can look at all sorts of artifacts in the repo, and then you can automatically detect of like, hey, you're using Fastify. Here's a Fastify endpoint that will kind of scaffold out a full action endpoint. You can do the same thing with all these frameworks. Like that would be an incredibly useful tool. That's on my list. But shameless plug, like if anyone wants to build any of these, please build them. It makes it so we can get them out to the broader ecosystem even faster. Yeah, so like AutoGen, testing the actions.json, kind of like that same idea of like having that tool, whether it's a full UI and also like CLI tooling. Some devs like UIs, some devs like CLIs. So yeah. Drink break. All right. Shift back over to some here. I saw someone was asking for the awesome repo. It looks like it was posted in the chat. If anyone's looking for some of the blinks that are live, or if you are building a blink, please publish it, open a PR to this repo, and we can help just make a really great, awesome list of actions and blinks that exist, tooling around actions and blinks, SDKs, whatever. There's a really cool one on there actually called, it's from Dan from Heavy Duty Builders. They built some Rust tooling around doing actions, including like, there's like a little video on their repo that's on there. That thing is super cool. Dan showed that to me. Shout out to Dan. I think I saw you in the chat earlier. That thing was really cool. Heavy Duty Builders, awesome, awesome people. All right, find this chat again. All right. Someone asked, is there a goal words are hard sometimes. Is there a goal regarding timeliness about reviewing registry submissions? How slammed are you right now and pending reviews work through? There's a group of us, and there are a lot of people submitting blinks and actions to the registry. And yeah, not scalable. Easily, hands down, not scalable. There are lots of them to go through, and there's a whole bunch of things to check. And I'll be honest with you, like we do not yet have automated tooling to check that. We knew we would want it. We knew it should exist. Again, the timeliness of the launch of like publishing everything yesterday and making it public. You can't build everything, right? Scope creep is real. So there's a whole bunch of process improvements that we want in there. One such one that Chris from Dialect, love Dialect, Chris is amazing, that we were all talking about quite a bit recently is right now it's basically an Airtable form and then it gets reviewed. Making that more automated so that way it's easier. Shifting that over to GitHub is one of the goals. So that way it's also public. So that way it's not like this siloed private thing that no one can see. Inherently, we want it all to be public. And then that's going to be the next phase of this to help it scale a little bit better. And then eventually Dialect is working with some of those security providers like Blowfish and Blockade and whatnot, and probably others, I would assume, working with some of these security providers to help make it so people can be more secure during all of this and be safe and be trusting of it and make it really easy and approachable. So timeliness, to answer the other question of timeliness about the reviews, honestly, I don't know. We're just going through them as we can and trying to comb through them. I will say, actually, there are a lot of people that are submitting, basically double submitting. Don't double submit. It slows everything down for everybody. Like if it gets submitted once and you get the confirmation when submitting, don't double submit because then it slows things down for everybody. Don't be that person. A side note, and then the next thing is if you are sharing a link to an existing platform that has a blink and you're just trying to use your your specific feature, you don't need to do that. So a good example is Jupiter. A lot of people are effectively double submitting Jupiter links. They will submit the Jupiter link for their token, like a swap link. That is completely useless. Don't do that. Because like I mentioned earlier, because of how the specification works, Jupiter works. You can just share your Jupiter link if you have a token or you're trying to do like token swaps. Same thing with Sanctum and their liquid staking. You can just share the link and it will work. It will unfurl, it will render, and users can interact with it by resubmitting the same Jupiter link for like swap token X to token Y. That's completely useless to put in the registry. And like, that's not how it works. It's basically just like noise. So it slows everything down. And a lot of people are creating tokens, which is fine. You know, people make tokens and stuff, but people keep submitting tokens that are just Jupe links. And that just like clogs up and is false noise in the registry review process. So stop doing that. Please stop doing that. You can just share Jupiter links for token swaps on x.com on your Twitter feed, and they will automatically unfurl, which is like the amazing thing of Blinks and Actions. So when you should submit to the registry is if you are building a net new thing, you built a custom action endpoint, you have your own domain. That's when you submit to the registry because you're adding something new. You're not submitting to the registry when you're using an existing platform that already does it. Same thing with something like Truffle. Truffle.tech, I believe, is the domain. If you're doing like NFT minting with Truffle, Truffle supports actions, and you can like do things with Truffle. You don't need to resubmit a Truffle link for your specific collection. That's the whole reason why there's a specification. Same thing with Sanctum, liquid staking. You can just share your Sanctum link for any liquid staking, and then Sanctum does its thing. Cool. So there's that. I need some more drink. All right, we got just a couple more minutes here. If anyone has any last minute questions, be happy to answer them. Probably 10 or so more minutes. I'll keep doing this before I need to go and do some other things. Someone asked, there it is. Someone asked, how do I recognize and words are hard. How do I recognize and protect myself from phishing blinks? That's where the registry comes in, where if someone shares a link that is not on the registry, they share a domain that's not on the registry, no blink is rendered. The UI to click the buttons and eventually get a transaction and sign the transaction, that does not happen. Nothing gets shown except like a normal link, like someone is sharing a link. So the only ones that are shown are the ones that are on the registry, and they've gone through like that review process a little bit, at the very least for like protocol spec checks. So right now there is a limited surface area there. So that's like one way. On the other side is don't interact with things you don't trust. That's like the rules of the internet. Don't go to websites you don't trust. Don't connect your wallet to dApps you don't trust. The same thing, if you don't trust the source, don't connect your wallet. Don't interact with it. That's like Internet 101. Yeah. Hey, Hall. Hall asks, what's the link for the awesome repo? I saw someone did answer it, but I will take the opportunity to give the shameless plug again. Awesome Blinks. There it is. The Awesome Blinks repo. If anyone has any ideas for Blinks and actions, feel free to post them there. If anyone's built a blinker in action, post it there. Let's build this awesome list of everything that the ecosystem builds that is related to actions and blinks, including things that already work in Unfurl, developer tooling, documentation. Probably once people start creating more content of like educational content, we'll probably add a section in there for that. And yeah, it'll be great. Oh yeah, I see Dan posted a link for it. This was the thing that Dan mentioned, that I mentioned that Heavy Duty built. I'm guessing it's pronounced Snap. I'm guessing Dan Snap. I'm assuming. Maybe that's a poor assumption. But this was the really cool Rust tool that Heavy Duty built, and check it out. It's super cool. There's a video on there or a GIF. It kind of like shows it. Rust and actions in action. Yeah. All right. All right. I think this might be this is the last question I see in here. Cloaked Dev. Hey, Cloaked. What ongoing checks are being done on blinks that have been verified? Is the Web 2 API? It's a Web 2 API. So how do you check for changes in their API that could potentially be malicious? So right now, effectively, that verification is doing some like, basically it's like structural checks right now for a lot of things, but it's also for known and notable projects in the ecosystem. Some examples are like, I mean, the list of who is currently approved on the registry is it's a publicly accessible JSON file effectively. And if you look at the dialect docs, it has like the link to it. I don't know the link off the top of my head for the registry, but it's publicly accessible and everyone can see who's in there. And it's people and organizations that are known and respected. So you got people like Jupiter, Sanctum, Tensor, Threeland. Shout out to Threeland. Threeland's real cool. Truffle, a bunch of these organizations that are well respected and are pretty known. A bunch of those like very notable organizations are on there, and those are some of the people that have already been pre-approved, and we're still going through the full list of everyone that is submitted. There's been a lot of submissions. So I hope that answers that question. And it's a Web 2 API. So how do you check for changes? So right now, again, this just launched yesterday. We're still figuring out the full logistics to make it more scalable in order to be able to have like recurring checks and all sorts of stuff like that. Ultimately, we're getting companies like organizations like Blowfish and Blockade, having all those security conversations with them to make it so you're getting all the automated protections that those services already facilitate. Because in the end, you're still also getting to the wallet side. Like eventually the user is still signing a transaction. You still get all the security benefits of transaction simulation and everything that wallets still do. So wallets like the three big wallets on Solana, they all have security measures in there, including transaction simulation, and they're doing all of those checks within the transaction you're seeing. So even if you were to connect your wallet to some random dApp on the internet, you're still connecting a wallet. You're still sending a transaction to your wallet. It has your key stored in there, your secret material to sign it. The wallet still handles a bunch of security things using their security protocols and systems and whatnot. I see another question from Cloaked. No one other than existing incumbents are getting on that list. Seems pretty centralized. Like I mentioned, this just launched yesterday. And we recognize that it is inherently centralized. I see your S there. I would put it with a Z. I am American. It is inherently centralized, and it is like I mentioned, it is effectively gate kept in a way. And that's semi-intentional. One, because it's an MVP, because this just went live yesterday. And two, we want it to be more public. The next phase here that we're working through is kind of shifting it to being a public GitHub repo is like the next stage. That way it's more public, and engaging with those security providers in order to have better, stronger, and faster security protocols and measures in place. So that way every user can still be protected, not only at the wallet level, but also at other levels across the action stack, I guess you can call it, to make sure that users are protected to the maximum extent possible. Like, security is incredibly important, and everybody that is part of this inherently recognizes that and explicitly recognizes it. And it's been a concern, and it's been in the forefront of our minds since like day -5, not even day 1, day -5, since like inception of the idea. Security, incredibly important. All right, this will probably be the last one. Someone asked, how do you verify some kind, or do we need access to verified HTML code to avoid source poisoning, ZK compressed stuff? Oh, why not? I'm not sure what that means. I'll be honest. I'm not sure what your question means. If you're able to kind of like reword that somehow, I just don't understand what your question is. Hey, I appreciate you too. Yeah. All right. Last call for questions, I guess. If either Guri, if you can kind of rephrase your question to something, I just don't understand it. If you could rephrase that, or if anyone has any last minute questions, I got probably another minute or two before I need to go grab something to drink. Well, go grab more things to drink, I suppose. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. So last thing I'll say is, again, I'm a developer. I love documentation. If anyone hasn't already, check out the docs for actions. Here's the link on the screen. They're just in the normal Solana core documentation. And then on Dialect's website, which I have a thing for as well, on Dialect's website, they also have a bunch of resources and documentation on some of the tooling and SDKs that they have built and are continuing to build, their platform they're building to help support actions and blinks. And if anyone is building actions and blinks, there's about 400K worth of grants that are kind of out there for people that are building actions and blinks. A bunch of it's being powered by Super Team and partnered with Dialect. So Super Team and Dialect, they have micro grants. You can learn a bunch more about what's available here and like what their criteria is. And the last one is, got to find my other thing. This one, the awesome blinks. If anyone's building awesome blinks or found some in the ecosystem, share them on here, and we can build this really awesome list of whatever blinks are available in the ecosystem. And if anyone has ideas or wants to have open discussions about blinks that can be built or they would like to see built, like maybe you're not a dev and you really want this idea, share it on here. Let's get some ideas going, public ideas that people can just, pick off the list and start building it. There's these are going to look pretty empty right now, I'll be honest, because this repo just went live like a couple of hours ago. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm Nick. I'm DevRel at the Solana Foundation. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.